Hello everyone and welcome to our webinar that's really taken some time to come up, and we have come up with an interesting subject. Actually, I've been keeping busy. I got quite a few reminders and requests for the webinars, and I've just been traveling quite a bit. So thank you again for gracing us with your presence and logging into the webinar. So today's webinar is something we went a bit too tech savvy, but I really hope it's worthwhile for everyone. There is IoT and PCI DSS. So IoT, I'm sure that people would be knowing what it means. Uh, Internet of Things. I guess you're aware of what it means and how it works. So I will not get into that. You can always look it up. If I just summarize it out, it basically refers to a network of physical devices, vehicles, appliances, and other objects which are embedded with sensors, software, and, and this has a capability to connect and then enables them to collect and exchange data using the internet. So, that's how it moves. All right, before I go on, I hope you can hear me. If you can give me a thumbs up so I'll know that there are no audio issues. I hope you can hear me. So just give me a thumbs up quickly. That would really help. DSS and the payment space also, very much it's coming up. So that's where we are taking it up and how it moves together. And that's our YouTube channel. So it is literally at this time one of the most visited compliance YouTube channel on the internet, if not the most visited. So all the content is free. We don't really pester anybody for membership or payments or anything. So all the content is there for free, which has been accumulated over the past few years. So do take benefit of that. And while you're there, just click on the subscribe and the bell icon. So what will happen is you'll get updates. We basically publish one video every week or something. So you can get the benefit of that and get pinged when new videos go live. All right. So this is about me. I don't like to get much into it. So, it makes me feel old. All right. So I've been in this industry for like more than 30 years now. And for the past 20 years, it's been my own company, Vista InfoSec. And we are there in this cybersecurity space. We don't sell any hardware, no software or anything like that. And yeah, that's about me. You can look up and I'm myself a QSA, SLC, SSFA, CSSDC, SARS, ERES. Many things are there. So you can visit up our company website if you need to know more. It is, vistainfosec.com. You can see the logo. You can put it together, put in .com at the end of it, Vista InfoSec. An introduction to how IoT integrates it with the payment space. Then we are getting into the key risk areas in the IoT payment space, and then the role of PCI DSS in securing IoT payments systems, and then what could be the best practices for IoT in the payment security space, and then what we are looking forward to the future and Q&A. Now, one thing you have to remember is that as we are going ahead, introduction and other areas, whatever your questions are there, just put it in the chat box. One of the reasons my webinars go, God willing, so nice is because there's a healthy exchange of questions and ideas. So if you have any questions, do put it in. Sometimes the questions are too much, but I promise you, I will take it up in the, I'll write to you personally on the emails. So you will have your answers for sure. And of course, no charges. Don't worry. So what is IoT in the payment space? So here we are. So the IoT refers to this. I've already given you this thing. So the role of IoT, it is end to end basically, from the transaction initiation to the data transmission, processing, and then finally the confirmation of the transaction. Everything end to end. IoT devices can be used. Now, I'm not saying that everybody is using it end to end, but that's how basically it goes. It depends on depends on you and how you want to use it and where you want to use it. So these devices are integrated very heavily into day-to-day lives and day-to-day spaces and operations. So to make it more like fast and easy, and all these credit card companies, debit card companies, they basically want you to spend. So now it is like become almost secondary, like NFC enabled wearable watches, smart watches. Now NFC has been available on the phone for like what 10 years now, but now it is caught up really very very strong. So there's a self-service kiosk, there's a smart POS terminals, and then there are the connected mobile card readers. Just need to bring your mobile phone with the amount close to the payment space, and it gets done. There is voice activated, there is in-car payment system. So IoT is becoming extremely prevalent, and because of this ubiquitousness of the IoT, in the payment space, the risks are also rising with that, and we'll come to that. Don't worry. So why businesses love them? Fast transactions. So they really want you to, spend. Really, they want you to spend. So I remember, like I had first seen when I was in Europe, I think like 10 years back, where there was the tap and go cards were launched that time, and I think I was in Sweden or Finland or something. So anyway, so there I was very much surprised. They would just swipe their cards, or just touch the cards and just move out of the channel, and I was really very surprised to see that, because the challenges were there. That is, you know, you keep the card in your pocket, and I can have a hidden reader. I can just walk through a card and read out a dozen of such cards out on my devices, and then I can safely replicate them. Of course, somebody might say that those there are liners, special liners to ensure that such readouts don't happen. But then those liners make the purse or the wallets very bulky. So even though my cards at this time, for example, might be having that tap and go functionality enabled, but then I can't really have those liners in my purse to on my in my wallet to make it safe. So that's where the issue happens. All right. So coming to the transaction space and all, there is faster transactions, there is stop and go, 24/7 payment availability, reduced labor costs, because you know labor really cost quite a bit. And that's where the self-service models, and you see this basically very much prevalent in the US and in European countries, where literally speaking, even there is even in Walmart and all, you can see that there are no people who are there to take your money. You can simply swipe out your systems, your cards, and your whatever your purchases on your own. So there is an enhanced customer service because they get very enthralled with such an experience. There is omni-channel integration across. So there is app-based online experiences, tap and go systems, Wi-Fi based readers. All those things are there. So it increases the operational efficiency. So it's not just payments. There's also automated inventory tracking, sales logging, instant notification. It even lets the purchase or the store manager know when some particular material is running low, or there is some the inventory is going low on some particular product, so they can order it or even place the orders for you. Of course, it's very much scalable. You just need to put the devices, just register and put the devices in your systems, in your premises, and you're good to go. And contactless and safe, of course, because earlier, pre-COVID, we are used to swiping the card, and then, oh no, the card can carry the COVID virus. So in that case, of course, the contactless became quite a bit of a rage. And in India, we even have the UPI. Um, so with the UPI, again, there's a barcode, and just simply scan it on your phone, and that's about it. And then there's a brand modernization. There's a customizable interface. You can just have one API in the background, and it can be white labeled across multiple vendors. Then there is a support for multiple payment types, and there's a real data time insights, real time data insights So it's a very big win-win deal for the banks and the merchants. And you have to learn to live with it. It's not going to ever die down. This is only going to grow because people want faster, even if the risk is higher. So that's where things fall into place. So as I said, you need not, cannot be, taking the easy way out. You cannot just ignore it. You will be coming into it sooner than later. So what's the catch? The catch is more devices, more entry points, more risk. How, there are like thousands of readers scattered across. How are you going to secure all of them? The card data coming in from 20 different channels. So how are you going to take care of them? So all those issues come up. So the more you add, the more you risk. Then there's the lack of encryption is possible is there. Default passwords are there. Those are the issue. Outdated firmware because many a time you might just get the models developed and cheaply, say from China or something or Taiwan types. So uh, without the backup of a very strong commercial setup, how are you going to get the right updates in the in the form of a proper firmware, or how are you going to configure the open ports, the software updates? What if the encryption is broken? See, earlier, as you know, and just like a few years back, SSL was the rage. There were literally SSL boxes and all was for VPNs, and connectivity was selling like hotcakes. Like everyone I knew had an SSL VPN box. Everyone, all the companies. But now SSL is totally discarded as an encryption box. So what if those devices came in with an encryption model like an SSL? Of course, now nobody implements SSL, but let's assume you are using TLS. Now, let's assume that TLS comes up with some serious vulnerabilities and somebody figures out how to crack it. And those IoT boxes, readers, or those scanners, or whatever you're using, they simply lack the functionality of updating the encryption protocols. How will you manage? So all those areas becomes extremely painful when there is a variety of devices, when there is heterogeneous locations, heterogeneous environments. This becomes extremely difficult to manage. So these are a few of the risks. So each connected device becomes a potential entry point because each of those devices are taking the data and sending it to the back end. So each of these smart POS kiosk, or whether it's a vending machine or whatever is there, they become like the point of entry, for like a digital doorway into your network. So the more devices you deploy, the more attackers can potentially hack into your system. Now again, don't get me wrong. More the entry points, I'm not saying that definitely you'll get hacked because there are more entry points. It depends on how open-ended or how vulnerable are those entry points. Then the expanding attack surface. So as the device count increases, so does your attack surface because more devices, more points of entry, and not just more points of entry, more possibilities that there could be an oversight. So maybe somebody attaches a phishing device to one of those scanning or those variable devices. Maybe some phishing, like clip on to those magnetic readers or the writers or whatever be the case, or those networking devices. So how are you going to keep track of all those things? So all those things, the expanding attack surface doesn't just mean an additional number of devices. The management time also for of those devices goes up. The monitoring, the managing, and the protection, the reviews of those entry points becomes extremely difficult to manage. Then of course the diverse vendor ecosystems. So many companies, their primary focus is cost. So somebody is charging, let's say, $100 for a reader. I'm just picking up these numbers. And then there comes up somebody who says, okay, I'll give it to you for 80. immediately they would jump and buy those things. Then somebody comes and says, oh, okay, we can do this for 75. Then they go in that direction. And then there is some issue noticed with these new devices. And then somebody else comes and says, okay, I'll just charge you $10 more, but I'll give you a better deal. So then they are paying, say, $85. And they will think, oh, it's still better than paying 100. So they're saving $15 on this. So in this itself, you've come up with four different devices which are used in the payment ecosystem. And so this diverse vendor ecosystem leads to very inconsistent security with regards to monitoring, with regards to updations, with regards to assessments. So what are the key security risks in our IoT payment systems? This is what we have summarized. So what we have seen rather in our experience with clients. So then the number one is always the weak or default passwords. Many a time we've seen that in all these IoT management systems, the admin or the managerial user IDs cannot be changed. Only the passwords can be changed. Sometimes they lack, a good password policy. So in that case, they can even have ABCD 1 2 3 4 on all the devices. Or sometimes it is so tough that it is uppercase, lowercase, 16 characters, and all that. Everybody writes it down behind the device itself. So those things you've seen. Then unpatched firmware and software vulnerabilities. So basically, what we have seen is that there are these devices running outdated and unpatched firmware. So because see, there are too many companies coming up who make or started making these devices, and somehow hope to in inverted quotes crack the market. But many times they are not able to do it. It's not something to be happy about. It's something to be sad because somebody's dreams were destroyed. So, but those devices are still out there. But now there is no boss to manage them. Then what about the unencrypted data transmission? So again, this comes to the configuration and the setup of those devices. Many a time, of course, all these devices have inbuilt data transmission and encryption, but not enforced properly. That becomes like a major issue. Now, the poor network segmentation, these diverse or these exposed IoT devices needs to put in a separate network segment. They cannot be put in a same zone as your servers or anything like that. So that's or your web servers. We've seen that also happening, but that's not the way to is. We always suggest that each segment of devices to be kept in a separate network. So the threads are easily managed out. So in case there is a outbreak of in say device type X, they remain segregated or limited to that particular zone. If you're mixing multiple devices, it's very well possible that one level of devices gets compromised, and from there, the hacker jumps to other devices because now they are inside the network. Insufficient logging and visibility. I have done audits for companies, and if I take the name of those organizations, I'm guaranteed that you would have heard of those names. So I'm talking of big names in PCI DSS, PCI SSF. So they have these devices doing the transaction monitoring and this transaction facilitation, but there is literally zero logs going from those devices to the central storage device for the simple reason being logs are simply not there. And I asked them, how did you pass this PCI the last year? They have nothing to say. They're saying, we are a closed network and it doesn't matter. And last year the auditor said nothing and all those things. So I simply showed them the requirements and asked them to ask the previous auditors to why he didn't show it. But again, whatever could be the reason, so the insufficient logging and visibility becomes like a major issue because in case there is some issue that comes highlighted later on, this should become a very big issue because then you have nothing to monitor and come to know that if a network was compromised, how it ended up compromised. Then vulnerable APIs and third-party integration. So API, now we have seen web applications getting assessed, but we have many companies skip out on the API, assessments. So they would say that, okay, those APIs are protected by keys and they're only given to very fixed companies. So why should we test the APIs? Basically, they want to save on the peanuts. So they want to save on the peanuts. So what happens is that they are, taking out the API testing, and APIs becomes like the bone of contention over there. Many a time, it's also possible that the parameterization is not done properly. The encryption keys are not implemented properly. Next is the supply chain compromise. Like from where you have ordered those devices, there in itself the firmware can get updated. Some particular spoofing machine can be module can be put inside, whether it's a hardware or a software. So supply chain compromise can happen. And if I can give this a different twist, as you might have remembered, a few months back, of course, they didn't own up to it, but a few months back, the Israeli IDF, they put in explosives in the pages of the Hezbollah, and hundreds and thousands of people were injured and maimed, and many died. So what experts are saying is that most probably the IDF, of course, IDF has not disclosed anything. They don't have these media channels who will be harping day and night of how a particular attack on the enemy was carried out. Now that happens in some countries, but definitely not Israel, where it is used as a platform to win polls. So anyway, so here they infiltrated the IDF. The IDF infiltrated the manufacturing chain of walkie-talkies and pagers for the Hezbollah. A small what to say, a small explosive was kept inside inside the pagers, and then whenever a specially crafted message is going to them, and the pagers go off, the walkie-talkies go off. Otherwise, they're working as good as normal. So the same thing can be used to even implement a small module which will read out the card numbers before they get encrypted and store it, and then maybe set up a supply chain across the internet to send the card numbers to the actual hackers. And then the local data storage on devices. This is again very clear. That is people storing the devices, the data on their machines itself. And then lack of industry-wide standard security standardization. Um, Now there are some standards who have come up with you know security standards for the IoT. For example, there's an NIST standard for cybersecurity. There is some reference to, the IoT. So those things are there. So it's not that it's totally missing per se. But even if you have somebody, who's monitoring everything, it should not be that big a problem. So then going to the next thing is that inadequate lifecycle management. Um, because these are like small devices lying here and there, and not like a sophisticated server lying in the data center, companies are very averse to implementing some system for phasing out these devices. So this becomes another problem, because those older devices might be having some sort of a vulnerability in the same. Then exposure to denial of service attacks, the IoT endpoints can get overwhelmed by malicious traffic, that thereby messing up with the with the data, or the integrity or the confidentiality of the data. So the power of IoT. So companies who implement IoT are not somebody who need like 10 or 50 devices. They're looking for devices, integrated devices, IoT based systems for thousands and thousands of endpoints. So security must definitely grow with it. Many a time it is the back end goes with it, but never the front end. So what's the role that PCI DSS can play in securing IoT payment devices? So there's a quick overview that PCI DSS is for payment card industry data security standards. We have a ton of webinars on this. So you can visit our YouTube channel, go to the playlist of PCI DSS, and end to end, everything is covered. So I will not get into the PCI DSS overview at this time. So why it matters? Because IoT devices often introduce vulnerabilities like weak default, as you've already seen, expanded attack surfaces, limited visibility, infrequent patching, and of course the unsecured communications. So there are already inbuilt into the standard itself, very strong, especially 4.0, very strong controls for taking care of these areas. Here I have put down a few. So there are like 12 requirements, as you're aware, in PCI DSS. So first one, install and maintain network security, NSC, network security control. So the IoT risk that gets addressed over here is the lack of segmentation or openness. So how this helps is that PCI DSS forces you to have segmentation in place. It makes it very incentivizes network segmentation because let me tell you this way that segmentation in PCI DSS is not a mandate, it's a suggestion. I hope that is making sense. Any question, just post it, I'll take it up. So the next would be the apply secure configuration, which is the default configuration in secure settings. As you've seen earlier, this is a major issue with IoT. So PCI DSS requirement to mandates the disabling of unnecessary services, changing vendor defaults, and securing all secure components. Now there could be something which is cannot be done. So PCI DSS also helps you having something called as a compensating control for those requirements where it cannot be done. Then, of course, the next is the protect stored account data. This takes care of unencrypted data at rest. It could be in the memory. It could be in the ROM. In the long-term storage memories of these devices. So this requires secure encryption and storage of cardholder data, which can be stored or processed by the IoT devices. The next requirement is protect cardholder data during transmission. So IoT risk over here is somebody is sitting and there is a man in the middle attack can be launched for compromising the data. So here it mandates that secure transmission uses encryption rate TLS 1.2 and above between IoT devices and the payment networks. The next requirement is protect systems from malware, requirement 5. So that we had again discussed earlier, that is malware on the IoT OS or in the app layers. So here also it requires a malware protection on devices where applicable, especially those running general purpose operating systems. Then the next is develop and maintain secure systems and softwares. And there it is all about the unpatched firmware and the software vulnerabilities. So here we discussed this earlier as to how this is a very important issue, very critical issue rather in IoTs. So here it is a mandate for focusing on timely patching. One more thing is identification of vulnerabilities. Then the secure coding practices and vulnerability management for IoT firmware and applications. The next is restrict cardholder data, restrict access to cardholder data by business need to know. And there again, the issue that happens in IoT is that excessive device or user privilege. So here it enforces access control based on roles and responsibilities. So it even mandates that the user access rights and the rights on the devices are checked on a very regular basis. Then requirement 8 in PCI DSS is identify and authenticate access to system components. So the risk to IoT is weak or no authentication for remote access. But here, how PCI helps is that it requires unique IDs. This is not really an option. If you cannot have unique IDs, you need to have compensating controls, two factors or anything in place. So that's where the strong authentication comes into place. especially for accessing the IoT systems and the management remotely. Then the requirement 9 is restrict physical access to cardholder data. There are very serious possibilities that there could be device tampering, and this happens very widespread where IoT is there, where unmanned stations are there. So for ATM kiosks, or it could be the petrol pumps where somebody can just fill up the fuel by swiping the cards. So the device tampering issues are there, or POS skimming as it is called. So this requires physical security controls and tamper evidence for unintended IoT devices like ATMs and kiosks. And the next is log and monitor all access to system components. The IoT risk over here would be unseen or undetected compromise. So as I said, we have done audits where they don't even have a monitoring system in place, and the apps are running, and thousands of devices are connected. But in requirement 10, you will fail the whole requirement. Dozens of controls in that if this requirement 10 is not in place, and this whole thing, requirement 10, is extremely well written on logging and monitoring. Requirement 11 is about testing of systems and networks regularly. So this again takes care of unknown vulnerabilities for IoT, and this requires regular vulnerability scans, penetration testing, and even for embedded or edge devices. And last requirement is support information security with organizational policies and programs. So here the issue becomes poor governance in as a risk for IoT, because again they don't care, in the sense those devices are hardly $10-20 that you get, or even lesser. So why bother with all the management and the monitoring, and we will set up a central system in the back end and all those things we have seen so many places. So if you have a very strong policy procedure structure in place, then the governance becomes easier to manage, and again to hold accountability. So the risk is, and the mitigation is very clear. So what's the best practices for IoT payment security? We have put down a few over here, and I really hope it helps you. Number one, very important, inventory and classify all connected devices. So have an updated list of all IoT payment devices, where it is POS, kiosk, vulnerabilities, wearables, or whatever, and then categorize them as per criticality and the data access. So there is like a head of R&D, obviously that person, or the change of command in the R&D or in the software delivery. So those people will need much more critically or sensitive marked wearable devices. Then next is change default creations, credentials, and hardware configuration. So you'll have the IoT coming in with the plain setup. You need to have some systems in place by which there are those hardening that is happening on the systems. The next is enforce secure communication protocols. So again, no compromise against it. Your child is not worth it in any manner. Your savings are not worth it. So you need to ensure that there is the secure communication protocols are in place, and you're using encrypted channels for the transmission of your data, because all your savings, all your finances are dependent on it. And avoid the deprecated protocol, that is SSL and early TLS and plain HTTP. Then, of course, regularly patching firmware and software. But over here, I'll take you a step back. I would suggest you to identify and buy devices only from very recognized and reliable companies. So you know that they are not going to shut down tomorrow. Take it from them, sign up for whatever service is there, and then ensure that for the entire life of the device that you might have identified, 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, or whatever, the device, the company is committed to giving you updates for it. Otherwise, next year they might say, "Oh, we have now outdated these. These are outdated devices. You'll have to buy new ones." And you might say, "Oh, I didn't invest like $1 million in these devices to upgrade it after 2 months." So you'll continue using it, and because of that, the firmware and the patch won't get updated, resulting in a breach. Then segment IoT devices from the CD. Much like a wireless system or something, this is something that I always say to all my clients, that is segment them out. If required, as per the particular company that they are belonging to, different brands, that is. And then animal locking and monitoring, this is like a de facto. It becomes a sin not to have it. And God forbid, in case there is a breach, this is the only thing that will prevent you, that will help you prove your innocence or show that you have not done any hanky panky. They perform the vulnerability scans and penetration testing. Now, this is a misconception that we have seen in many companies, that what they feel, oh, it's a IoT device. What is the point on doing a VA? I'll do the VA of my desktop, my servers, my databases, but not my IoT devices. Because some of them feel it is too small. And for somehow, I believe they feel that, size matters. So they think it is too small, so shouldn't be paying attention to it. But, those small devices can lead to much higher acts. So then again, ensure physical security and tamper resistance on the device itself, so that you get your system safe and secure, and nobody is able to attach a kit to it, so that they can siphon away the funds of the people. Next is implement role-based access and the multi-factor authentication. So again, those small devices, for every transaction, doing a multi-factor is not really advisable. This will be more from the backend system perspective. And then last but not the least is establish IoT specific policies and procedures. Rather across the board, I've seen rarely any company has policies and procedures which speak about the IoT. So you need to have that, and IR is incident response plans. In case something goes wrong, then how you are going to handle it. Now, this is also missing in many companies, but I really hope that you do give it a thought. Now, the future of IoT payments. As we are coming to the closure of our webinar, let's look at the future of IoTs. AI-powered smart POS systems. POS that thinks and learns with every swipe. These are like really coming out in the POS market. Very snappy, very snazzy, and just imagine go to a high-end store and they're coming up with this high-end, POS devices, which even lets you know if there is a possible fraud. Takes a photograph of the person, personalizes the user experience, greets them, wishes them, all those things. So AI-powered smart POS systems are there, and biometric authentication and integration. Your face or your fingerprint. This is already, I've seen some videos coming up in China too. Just the palm print. So that in itself becomes like a payment mode. So IoT enabled devices are now using fingerprint, facial, and voice recognitions to authorize the payments securely and seamlessly. And this is, as they're saying, they are looking at this securing like $3 trillion in global transactions. So the 2023 guidelines for IoT, there is the tokenization come mandate, not mandate, I would say guidelines is there for securing the IoT payment systems. We already have a webinar on tokenization in PCI DSS. So if you want to learn more on tokenization and dynamic CVVs, you can look up that particular webinar. So in 2025, the tokenization market is predicted to grow significantly, exceeding 4 billion and potentially reaching 574 billion in tokenized transactions by 2029. So a few questions that were sent to us by mail when the people were requesting for this webinar. So what makes IoT devices in payment environments more vulnerable to security risks? So these are basically CISOs and all. They were playing around with getting some sort of IoT system in place, for the payment environment, and this is where it was going. That is, uh, they they think, and rightly so, that payment environments are much more vulnerable. So then, how can business identify whether their IoT payment devices are PCI DSS compliant? Again, you need to have a thorough risk assessment, vulnerability assessment of all your IoT payment devices, and ensure that there is a network segmentation in place, and work with quality security assessors like us. So, for example, we are also into software attestation. So there is PCI SSF, and SSF has modules for terminal security also. So we can help you, and of course, others are also there. So does PCI DSS have specific requirements for IoT devices? So as of now, there is no specific, very strong IoT based requirements. But as I have shown earlier, you can use the existing PCI DSS 4.0 framework for securing your IoT devices also. So what PCI DSS are more critical when dealing with IoT payment systems? We have already discussed this requirement 2, 8, 10, and 11. And so what are some of the base minimum security best practices to secure IoT devices? One is, of course, as we discussed this earlier, disabling unused services and ports, implementing firewall update mechanisms, and then using network segmentation to isolate the IoT devices. We saw this multiple times. That segmentation is very, very important. And then conducting regular penetration testing of your infrastructure. Now, again, this is something that we do also, and we are Crest and panel, so we do a lot of these things. But whether you do it with us or somebody else, you need to have a regular pen testing schedule. Then, how does a business manage third-party risk related to IoT vendors? Very, very important. The first thing that you do is conduct a thorough vendor assessment as per the data exposure to that particular vendor. Put it down in your clauses, in your contracts. Regularly audit. Don't just go by their audit reports. Have the right to audit yourself. Enforce the best practices. Maintain a clear communication with vendors, and then, of course, develop and implement a joint incident response plan. So then, how can we help? Of course, we can do the gap assessment. We can do the penetration testing. We are Crest approved, and we are ourselves being a QSA. We have been in the PCI industry for like since 2008. So, and then of course, security training of your team members for internal teams. That is something that we can help you with. And then, of course, we have our own Audit Fusion 360. That is like a customized framework where we consolidate various audit services across standards. So there is PCI DSS, ISO 27001, SOC 2, SOC 1, GDPR, HIPAA, whatever be the case. You can consolidate and do your integrated IoT-based audits too for you. That's our own system, Audit Fusion 360. You can visit our site for that. And yeah, that's about it from my side. I hope this was helpful to you. And do drop in a line in case there is some questions that you do have, and I'll be more than happy to be in touch with you. Thank you again, and God bless.